Hey everybody, this is another installment of the interview series where I try to steal some time from industry experts, top drivers, and notable characters. Today we're catching up with Dave Cape. Dave is just a normal dude by day, married with a daughter, and he's an engineering tech at Sub-Zero, the company that makes the world's best refrigerators. But in his spare time, he is one of the best RC crawling drivers in the world. He is the current reigning WRCCA world champion with first place finishes in sporty and pro classes. When he shows up at a comp, you can bet he'll be a contender to win. There's a bunch of footage of Dave's skill in my 2024 Nationals coverage. He's also a super nice guy and always willing to talk setup and teach technique with anyone. So we're going to try and get some of his best driving tips and setup tricks. On this channel, we look at the science behind our grown-up toys. Hey Dave, it's super nice to have you on the channel. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
No, it's great. I think everyone's going to be really excited to get some good tips and some insight into the industry. So, first of all, how long have you been driving, and what brought you to this niche sport?
I've been driving for like RCs probably since about '08 is when I first started.
Yeah,
I first started with I kind of found it. I can't remember quite how I found it, but I seen something online, maybe RC Crawler forum, and it just grabbed me. I'm just like, oh man, that's cool. I want to try that out. And anyhow, my first crawler was a RC four-wheel drive bully. Actually, that was the second crawler. The bully was the pro,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then I had a ready to run. It was like a caged shafty RC four-wheel drive kit,
yeah,
and I took that to a comp, like local comp. This was up in Washington when I first started,
yeah.
and anyhow, I took it to a comp, didn't really know much about it, and that thing just fell apart every chance it got. It just wasn't cut for competition crawling. So I started graduating from there and researching a little bit more what's everybody running
Yeah, yeah.
and kind of going from there. But yeah, about '08 and then on really.
Now, back then, did they have as many classes and rules and
So
classes that they do today?
I'm trying to think. They did. Gosh, I really don't remember the mini class so much, but like the pro shafty, back when I started, they also had like a novice class.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and you could kind of start there and just kind of work your way up, and then kind of graduate into like more of the pro class, right? So
Were
depending
the
on
vehicles the same between pro and novice class?
yes. So
Okay.
so they back then they had like what we consider a sportsman today. A lot of guys had like a sportsman type of rig, but also had dig.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was kind of way back, and then the pro axles and whatnot kind of gained a lot of traction,
yeah.
and that's how that class kind of came about. But
Nice. So currently I've seen you drive four different classes and at WRCCA competitions. And of those four classes, from mini to super, what's your favorite class if you have one?
I really like them all. But a while back, I would say probably mini was my least favorite.
Yeah, yeah.
But recently, I feel like that's changed a bit. I have a new mini, and that thing just flat works.
What
Hold
is
on, give
it?
me. It's a La Pera Loca
Yeah.
Deluxe, and that thing right out the gate, plug and play, like it just flat works. So that's a very well designed mini class, in my opinion.
Now that's pretty much
Um,
got all 1.9 parts on it, just with a tinier chassis that squeezes it down to the
yeah,
mini
I
class
mean,
regs,
yeah, I
no?
mean, honestly, like the sporty the axles are, they're really like a sporty based miniature size axle, basically. So
Yeah, yeah.
same gear, same drivetrain, just a little bit more narrow, right? So They hold up extremely well. Back in the day, the old mini class, all the parts just weren't up to taking a beating as they are
Yeah, yeah.
now. So that's it. It's really evolving, in the mini class. But yeah, so mini class is a good one. But super class, I love the super class. I really would love to get better at it. But like those things are just so capable, and there's so many different lines you can drive just with that added four-wheel steer. You can get the back end around just the placement. It's
Yeah.
endless. So I really dig that. And then of course pro and sporty, those are the staples. I mean, those are definitely fun classes as well, for sure.
So on that topic, what do you think is a more powerful tool, four-wheel steer or dig, if you had your choice on any vehicle?
Um, Gosh, you need both. I mean, four-wheel steer. I would, like I said, there's so many ways to approach a gate. That four-wheel steer is so beneficial.
Yeah.
But you still need dig, to get into some of these areas and different lines and whatnot. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Do you use rear dig only, or are there sometimes where you use front dig?
I'm mainly front. Honestly, I probably don't utilize rear dig as much as I could.
Now, just so
I,
we know, when you say front dig, that means the front wheels are locked or the front wheels are spinning.
Front wheels are spinning, rear's
Okay.
locked.
Some people call that rear dig.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, so you use dig where the back wheels are locked and the front wheels are driving, pulling,
Right,
digging.
right, right.
And there's never really a situation to use the opposite, is there?
No, there is for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. If you want to scoot the back end around, obviously outside of a four-wheel steer, this is like a pro class. You can obviously do it in super class as well. But yeah, if you want to get the back end placement exactly where you want to drive the line, sometimes you can utilize that rear dig just to scoot it around, use your steering, and kind of get it placed where you want it,
Okay,
basically.
so lock up the front and then buzz the back
Yep.
around.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, dig is super interesting. I'm struggling to find a place where a person can learn to get good using dig. I feel like it's not really many educational sources out on how to drive dig.
Yeah, it's really just a feel. Yeah, it is just a feel, and you kind of graduate like picking your lines, and how to pick lines, know what your rig can and can't do,
Yeah,
um, and obviously know where to use dig, and which dig, is it front, is it rear, um, and whatnot.
yeah, cool. So
Yeah.
so you've got at least four vehicles. I'm sure you have many more. Do you use when you go to a competition, do you use the same radio for all four vehicles?
Yeah, so no, I don't use the same controller right now. I use a Futaba 4PK for my one of my pros, and also for the super. And the reason I chose that one, um, on the dial indicator, there's a roller dial close to the thumb that I can roll. It's a stepped dial, and you can
Okay,
set up the increments on that. But I use that to kind of roll the rear steer. And I have all my other features are exactly the same for dig as my pro is. But I
okay,
really like that roller style wheel. It just feels good to me. So I use that for super and pro, and then for the sporty. I was very recently just running a Futaba 10PX, and then just recently I changed over to run the MT12 Radio Master MT12. Like the RXs on that thing are super tiny. They're easy to compact into a nice electronic smash. Um, so I'm gonna transition over to that, and I'm hoping to transition that to the super as well, because it has a lot of the same features and even
okay.
more so. So
So which control are you using the rear steer on?
on my Futaba 4PK right now.
And sorry, and which it's the thumb wheel you said?
Yeah, there's a thumb. Thumb wheel, and it kind of
Okay.
rolls forward, back.
Okay. So my question is, how does that have a recentering feature? How do you know when you're back in the
It
middle?
it doesn't. No, it doesn't have a recentering. It may, like the controller may, but my radio is not set up, or the program's not set up like that. So I
Oh,
just,
so
yeah, I just dial it back until I can see it straight.
you manually, okay.
Yeah.
That takes some skill, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah, and like the new MT12, or this MT12 is not new, but it does have a feature that will center. So it's got a toggle where you can throw it one way, say left, right,
Yeah.
center,
Okay.
which is pretty handy. And then it has like a real fluid dial on it to kind of,
Okay.
it's almost like it's stepped, but it's a little bit more fluid.
And you're using full proportional steering. You don't have increment stops.
I do on my current setup, but I'm
Okay.
hoping on the MT12, we'll see if I can better that a little bit with this radio.
Okay. All right. So you're switching around radios and you're switching around cars. Do you ever get
Yeah.
messed up in your head? What,
Oh
like
yeah.
you're trying
Oh
to,
yeah.
you're trying to
Yeah,
rear
for
steer a
sure.
Mini or something?
Yeah, for sure. Like for like how little I drive the super class, like it's like starting from ground zero again, every time I plug that thing in to drive. So yeah, it definitely takes a little while to get back up to speed on that thing. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things you got to remember, where your dig
Yeah.
is, your rear steer. Back in the day when I used to drive super, I used to have buddies that would tell me, they would be telling me in one ear what to do in certain situations, and then, but yet I'm trying to focus on all of these controls and what does what. And I got to the point where I was like, all right, listen, just shut up, let me figure it out. And that was the best approach, because like it just came together for me after a while, driving it. But
Yeah, more
yeah,
than once I've seen drivers yell at their spotter or the
yeah,
the section marshal about the stress level goes up pretty fast. I can see.
yeah. And like this is all, I mean, this was at like local comp, so I don't really care too much. But like, I always tell my buddies, don't, just shut up and let me figure it out. But they're all, I mean, it's not like they're no hard feelings there.
Sure, sure, sure. No, everyone gets it.
Yeah.
Do you have any sponsors you want to plug?
Yeah, I do have two right now. Shift RCS, Ryan Rodriguez from Shift. Servos are great. Those things are awesome. And then
Yeah.
Holmes Hobby, run the motors for Holmes Hobby,
Okay.
and ESCs and whatnot. So yeah, just recently I started running Shift's newest servo. It's a GT4
Yeah.
direct power servo, and that thing is incredible, man. I feel like I'm almost starting. I almost have to relearn my rigs, because that thing is so
Really?
powerful, and you get
Oh,
into certain situations where that front end, before would kind of stall out and whatnot, and you
yeah.
just kind of drive through it. Now it powers through, and I got to be careful of where it's going to throw that
Wow.
back end around, right? So like it's almost
Interesting.
almost kind of like relearning it somewhat, but it definitely does help in situations where like before I get into like a certain climb or section
Yeah.
where the front end would just kind of stall out, and I can't get it back unless I drive forward a little bit more. Now I can get it back. So
So you
it's,
used to have to adapt your driving style to
yeah,
subpar equipment, and now you've
right.
got equipment that hangs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like
Interesting.
I said, I gotta relearn it again, so it's pretty cool though, man. That it just how quickly, the sport's evolving, and moving
Yeah.
forward. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. So Shift RC and Holmes, both great, great companies.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
So tell me if you think this is fair. Um, a competition is more about a driver's ability to show up, read the terrain, improvise on the spot, under pressure, against the clock. And it's less about the ultimate ability of, say, the vehicle or the driver. And what I mean is, a lot of times guys will go back and drive after the competition sections that they struggled with, and they can usually clean them after one or two times. So it's not like the sections are only possible for the top one or two drivers with a perfectly tuned car. Is that a fair breakdown of what competition is?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the stress level is there for sure, you know, like I for me, like I I usually place pretty well, during the big comps, but like I do well outside of finals, right? So finals has always been like my nemesis.
Okay,
I
sure.
struggle with it because people are watching. There's more people watching, more eyes on you, and it's hard for me to focus on what I'm doing and do well at it, right?
Sure.
Um, so that was kind of a struggle for me, and I feel like recently I've gotten better at it. Just I get there and just for me, just go out there and have a good time. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
care what everybody thinks. Just go out there and have fun, and that's when I do the best. Like
Okay.
um, and yeah, I'm not sure if that answered your question,
Yeah,
but
it sounds like it's competition is a little bit more about stress management and keeping your skill level high
yeah,
under stress than
for
it is
sure,
about having the perfectly tuned car
for
because
sure, for
you can
sure.
mess up a perfectly tuned car if you can't
Yeah,
manage it
absolutely,
during the clock. Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool. So in RC, you get to be both the mechanic, the car engineer, and the driver. And in other sports like F1, you'd never see Lewis Hamilton changing his tires or something. He's only the driver.
Right.
So do you enjoy having to be the technical expert as well as the driver? And do you prefer one or the other?
Yeah, I love both aspects of it. You know, my friends kind of laugh at me because I can't leave anything alone.
Sure.
Like for example, at Worlds, I did really well at Worlds. But then I took my vehicle, more or less, put it on a shelf, and started with a new build, and I started a new chassis. And like they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just having fun." So I enjoy the wrenching side of it as much as I do driving. I enjoy,
Yeah.
and I get more time to wrench on my rigs than I do drive them, to be honest with you. But
Sure, sure.
I really enjoy, these new parts coming in, and I can't help myself. I gotta have, let's try this, do that, let's adjust this, let's see what it does, and that's what kind of gets me excited to go to the comps and just,
Yeah.
see what the outcome is. Is it better? Is it worse? Anyhow,
Yeah, I think that's what's great about this sport is you have to be super technically inclined. There's always a few people that like, oh, I just want to drive my car. Tell me what links to get. Tell me how to
yeah,
check. They don't want to mess around with it. And this is
yeah,
not the sport for them because this is
right,
really a tinkerer's and a tweaker's hobby for sure.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Cool. So maybe let's just talk briefly about maybe each of your cars, each of
yeah,
the classes. So maybe Sportsman or Shafty. Tell me a little bit about some of the particulars of your setup. Like, what are some of the parts you like the best? What are the things you're
sure,
super particular about, or anything,
sure.
any nuances that maybe we could pass along to people that might want to improve in that class?
Yeah, I'll grab
Yeah,
my
let's see
mini
it.
to start with.
Mini, sure.
Um, so this is my mini. This is a La Paraloca chassis. It's got the deluxe rear mini axle in the rear,
Yeah,
and then it's got Kyle's mini axle up front. This thing is extremely planted. It works very well, like I said, right out the gate. It's more or less like almost plug and play. Like really, the
yeah.
most of the tuning and whatnot that I did was just trying to increase the steering in it, really.
Okay.
And it's got. I think I'm getting it all.
Dang.
So it's got gobs of steering. And I made a little battery tray mount for it, but that's about it.
Did you grind the U joints any
No,
deeper than they
I
are?
didn't. No, I've kind of just figured my limits out.
Okay.
I keep adjusting the steering stops and taking it to comps. When am I going to blow this joint up, more or less?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've found my limits. I've backed off a little bit. But that's the part that I like about it. I like to find those limits and then, maybe just back off a little bit. But obviously in the sportsman or the mini class, the steering is key on these things. I mean, you got to
Okay.
have steering. You got to be able to save a reverse, stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, this thing right here, right out of the box, it's a great driving, very well performing, stable platform right out of the
Yeah.
box.
Well, that's awesome. I
Um,
wouldn't quite say that's out of the box. There's still a massive amount of work put into that out of the box.
yeah, for sure. But yeah,
Cool.
and then I'll show you my sporty.
Yeah.
Right now, my sporty is kind of in pieces, but this is the Deluxe Lunatic,
Yeah.
basically entire kit. This thing works extremely well as well. Like it's got a good breakover. It's a more forward biased chassis,
Okay.
and it's very well planted. It works really well. And the reason I have this thing torn apart right now is because the last comp I put the new servo in, and I just threw the wiring together, and it had a little twitch to it. So little things like that, and then I actually had this thing upside down, and I run a Outrunner, the 2200 Stumpy motor in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I had it upside down, I had a bunch of rocks that got stuck in the body, and they were
Oh,
spinning against the motor.
yeah.
And I literally loosened up somehow my pinion, and I lost
Oh.
everything. so
Oh.
so I had to redo that. I got to redo my wiring, and same time I'm also putting in the new RX and whatnot
Okay.
to run on the other radio. But
Okay.
anyhow, this thing works great. This one, like it's more or less almost right out of the box from Deluxe as well.
Okay.
There's a little bit of tuning involved, but I've changed a few things on it that I didn't like, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, this thing, again, like steering is, you
Oh my
know,
gosh. That and you didn't do any additional filing of the U joints. They will go that far
so
as long as you file off the knuckles.
so like I've worked, I have like a little cavity right there for the nut to ride in.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
I've ground that down.
But not the U
Obviously
joint itself, huh?
I haven't touched the U
Okay.
joints. No,
And those are
yeah.
deluxe U joints.
Those are,
Wow.
yeah, those are axial style deluxe universals. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I could probably push my car a little further then. It makes me nervous because it starts to hop when you get to,
It does get a little jumpy.
yeah.
But man, I'm telling you, just once you figure that out, you gotta have it.
Okay. Cool.
So anyhow, there's the sporty. All right. So, and then
Oh,
this is the
dang.
super
So
class.
big.
This thing doesn't get as much action as I'd like, but this thing works pretty well. I've had this chassis. This is a old Y-Town chassis
Yeah.
in here. It's a super agent chassis. It works really well. I've changed axles to the deluxe super light super
Yeah.
axles. But yeah, this thing works really well. Haven't had a lot of updating on this thing. I plan on going to like the new GT4 servos,
Okay.
stuff like that, because obviously this thing hogs a lot of torque with these big tires and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You definitely do need it on this thing for sure.
You're not using
Um,
the that geared servo amplifier on that.
I don't, I kind of I honestly prefer having the speed,
Yeah.
because that torque it's gonna give you more torque, but it's also gonna slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to shuffle off something, I like having that speed.
Okay.
That's just what I've gravitated towards.
Sure. Sure.
And again,
Well,
the
the
servos are getting better and better, so more torque, speed, all that's gonna start coming into play.
yeah, it almost seems like you don't need that anymore because you've got so much torque and speed.
Right. So
Looks
yeah,
like you
there's
also
a
like to glue tires. Is every one of your vehicles got loaded dice wheels with glued tires?
so this no, this is let's see if you can see in there. This is
Yeah.
a custom hanger from my friend Dan Guy.
Oh, nice.
Um, and then I don't know if you can see that too, but I run like the double shear arms. but I run two
Yeah,
aluminum.
yeah.
I don't like the carbon fiber arms
Okay.
myself, because like I've been in situations where those things just shear with no warning.
Ah,
And so like I'm always about trying to find something that's more reliable,
okay.
consistent, right? So anyhow, I went with the aluminum double shear on this
Yeah,
one.
nice.
It's kind of like a loaded dice kind of hanger sort of for this, but
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I run the 4.5-inch wheels. I don't run the big ones. I kind of like having a little bit more foam
Oh,
in
okay.
there. And you know, I mean, I can see the benefits to both. You can get the weight down lower, you know, on a larger wheel, and I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
that. But show me something this thing can't do, and compare it to something that, you know, a low hanging
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
So,
Cool.
anyhow, that's the Super in a nutshell.
And you
Um,
got an MOA somewhere?
yeah, I got a. This is the Pro that I have been running since Worlds,
Okay.
or after Worlds, actually. This is an Exo Matterhorn. Um, this thing, it works pretty good. It took some time to tune.
Yeah, yeah.
I worked with Rico quite a bit, trying to get this thing tuned in, because
Okay.
it's a little bit more finicky on geometry. It's a very forward biased chassis. So, you know, the rear links, it kind of tends to hike the rear a little bit more.
Okay.
So I tried to find, I kept messing with it, almost gave up on it. And I kept messing with it. And I finally found a happy place with the link geometry and whatnot. But
Okay.
this is a bird base.
Oh,
So it's a
yeah.
bird. My friend Randy turned these tubes down. They're splined. But
Okay.
just a bird based gear case and stock tubes, really. These aren't loaded dice style wheels. Um, these are actually, these are high altitude performance, and then some bolt on deluxe additional weight in there.
Okay.
Um,
And that set's beadlock. They're not glued on.
they are glued on.
Oh, they are glued on. Okay.
Yeah, all of mine are glued on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was going to say, look like with those carbon hubs that you do a lot of tire gluing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then the rear is kind of an older TIE fighter. This is a 7075 version TIE fighter. This came out way back in the day.
Okay.
Super minimal axle, very high quality 7075. They're great axles. That, you know, I'm dreading the day that I break this thing and have to go back to something else. But
Yeah, yeah.
anyhow,
Okay.
these are great. But yeah, this thing's been working pretty good for me. I've been running this quite a bit at local comps, as well as nationals and whatnot.
Okay. And
Yeah.
it looks like you're using the deluxe stumpy motor in a lot of those cars.
So the Stumpy motor, I'm running in the Sporty, the 2200 and the Sporty, as well as the Mini.
Yeah.
Um, and those motors have been great. The bottom end, the low end resolution is phenomenal. Those things,
Really?
on top of that, those things have just gobs of torque.
Okay.
So you can power through stuff a lot easier, and it doesn't, you know, when you get them bound up, it doesn't just shoot you out. When it finally does unload, it's just got gobs more torque, a lot more controllable. But yeah, they're great motors. I've been waiting for the new in-runners to come in. Really want to give those a go. It help be a lot more helpful for electronic placement when you have to try and place it far enough away, so you're,
Yeah.
you know, the motor's not scraping on something, right?
Okay.
As it's spinning like an outrunner and whatnot. So really looking forward to trying out the in runners. But
Yeah. Plus the packaging. I mean, the motors are so tiny.
yeah, they're super tiny. Yeah,
You running
and they pack.
4S mostly or 3S?
So I run 4S in the Super. Let's see, 4S in the Sporty, 3S in the Mini, and 3S in the Pro.
Okay.
3S high voltage and 4S high voltage.
Is there something you're really passionate about, like oil weight or spring rate or tire inserts? Is there one area that you always fixate on in all your cars, or no?
Um, I mean, I fixate on everything on those things, but
Okay,
I kind
that's
of,
fair.
each comp, it seems like I go to, like, I'll figure something out that I just didn't like. Oh, I
Yeah,
wish this was a little different or this, and that's why, like, I change so much stuff so often.
yeah.
I can't help it. It's just in me to just try different things, right? Um, but I think I really enjoy the getting into the design of, like, the axles and whatnot. Like,
Okay.
even like down to like servo placement.
Hmm.
Just because a servo is down low, does that mean that your servo is actually optimized? Not
Hmm.
necessarily, right?
Hmm.
Maybe you can get all the throw out of it, but where your arm is actually ending up when you get all that throw, it's not optimal, right? Like, it's just not getting as
Yeah.
much torque that you could be. So, like,
Okay.
so looking at stuff like that, like, I try and pick that stuff apart, and even, like, down to, like, axle design, like, what's working, what could change, is it sliding over the rocks well, is it holding up, where can we beef things up. I really enjoy, I would love to work with more designers on that, and just kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
test and tune them, and what do you think is more beneficial, and I nerd out on that stuff.
Sure. No, that's terrific. That's one of the appeals of the sport for me anyway, is nerding out on stuff.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
What do you have any particular testing methodology that you like to employ when you've got a new item you want to test? Do you approach it a certain way, or do you just go for it, or do you bracket test, or
um
any particular methodology?
Testing for me is going to the comps.
Yeah, okay.
I don't go out and practice. Like, I just don't. I feel
It's gonna make
like,
a lot of people mad. You never practice, you just show
well,
up and
I feel
dominate.
like I gotta have some skin in the game, right? So, like, but I mean, I do practice a little bit, but like, if I go practice, it'll be with a couple buddies, and we're literally gonna set gates up, and it's gonna be like a mini comp, right? We're gonna
Okay.
time it, everything, score it, all that stuff. Um, so that's, that I don't really have a great test. Like, I test when I comp.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, that's a great way to do it because you're under pressure and you're going to know right out of the gate whether you set it up right or not, probably.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Do you make very many tweaks during the comp between sections?
Um, Not really. No,
Okay.
the comps are, like, typically like a pretty long, compact day. Like, there's so much stuff you got to do along with scoring and whatnot. So, like, I'll just learn from it, and I'll change things, when I get home, and for the next comp type thing.
Okay.
I try and keep my, even down to, like, I was trying to figure out how to keep all my nuts and bolts tight, right? Like, as you're driving them, as you're beating on it, stuff starts to loosen up, and that kind of drove me nuts. Obviously, it's good to check, in between
Yeah.
courses and whatnot, but uh, probably over maybe about a year and a half ago, I started to go to, it's called it's a washer, and it's called a Nordlock washer,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like a two-part washer that, it bites into itself along with
Yep.
the surface on both sides, right?
Hmm.
And those things keep stuff very tight. I feel like they work better than Loctite.
Yeah.
I use them on my wheel nuts. I use them
Okay.
on steering components. Anywhere I can fit them, I'll try and slide them in there. And, like, my wheel nuts really don't come loose.
Okay.
During a comp, same thing with, like, steering, stuff like that. Even though, like I said, I'll check them and whatnot, but they stay pretty good, stay pretty tight.
Okay. So I did a video on Loctite, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I mentioned Nord washers in there. So if anybody wants to check out a long, boring video about Loctite, you'll know everything about it. But there are a lot of mechanical solutions. And I'm about to do a video on a new type of lock nut that's pretty cool. When it comes to Nord washers, you find those in M3 and
Yeah,
M2.5 and M4?
yeah.
Really?
So yeah, McMaster sells them in an M3. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the smallest one is an M3, actually. So and it goes
Okay,
up
I've
from
never
there.
seen them that small, but I'll put a picture up of what a Nordlock is. They're pretty cool, and
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear they work. I'm gonna order some now.
yeah, no, they're great. Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Are there any evolutions in course design you would like to see? Athletes always have input into the future of courses, the size of the jumps or the sharpness of the corners. They're always looking for competitor feedback and how courses should evolve. So in this sport, do you have some preferences on what you'd like to see courses become harder, easier, more ups, more
There's
downs?
That's always a tough one to gauge because as from a local comp standpoint, you're always trying to bring people in and get them interested in driving, but you want to find that happy medium between a course that's finishable and a course that's like tough, but like you're always trying to balance that, and it's
Yeah,
always a tough balance, right? So I mean, generally, yeah, I mean, you want your bonus gates to be the big challenges, right?
okay.
Obviously the other gates are challenging as well, but maybe not extremely challenging. They're not all like 100% bonus gates, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's tough to find that fine line, and and it depends on the rock and what you're given and
yeah.
whatnot. Obviously I spend a lot of time on setting up a course. I think about it a lot, and I pick it apart. I'm like, oh, can I do it from here? Where can I draw my boundary line? Everybody always barks at me like, come on, man, you're still on the same course. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but it's going to be a fun one.
I see a lot of the competitions I see that like side hill off camber turns are a super
Yeah,
common obstacle. Myself, I'd like
yeah,
to see more death drops or cliff dives where you got to like plummet down off of stuff. I never
yeah.
see that.
See, like that's your thing. I hate the downhills. I can't stand them because I feel like it's just the luck of the draw, right?
It
That's
can
how
be.
I feel about it. But yeah, downhills are just I can't stand them. But they are definitely there is a technical side to it, but
Yeah,
often
yeah.
than not, it feels like luck to me. But yeah, I
Cool.
like the um, I and people could argue this all day long, but I really like setting up like gaps or gates where you have to bump up
Yeah, yeah,
and try and get the grab, pop it in
yeah.
dig, try and grab it, pull yourself up. And those are great for bonus gates and whatnot, or just gaps. You know what I mean? Like I like that stuff. Like I feel like I try and build my rig tough so it'll handle that stuff. And anyhow, maybe more of that stuff is cool. It kind of keeps it a little bit more exciting and fun.
Yeah, I think fast, flowy, dynamic moves is part of the future. They are crawlers, but I love those dynamic moves where you gotta bump across the gap or bump up and over
Yeah,
something. That's
yeah. In
really
fact,
next level skill.
yeah, one of the comps, it was a shootout a few years back. I set up a super course, and it was
Yeah.
a same thing, three bonuses on this course, but I set
Yeah.
up all three bonuses across this gap. So if you can't make this gap, you
Nice.
can't get any bonus, literally.
Ah, okay.
So it was pretty fun. I went for it. I stuck it. A lot of people got bumped off, and it was fun. I enjoy doing that stuff. Like
Well, Dave, that was super fun and super interesting. Thanks so much for taking your time, and we'll see you out on the rocks, I hope.
absolutely. I look forward to seeing you. Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys.